phone.
Are you gonna write them down?
When we show you how to do it.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. Yeah, you probably better at it than him. Probably better at it than you. What I own, so. I know. They already do that. And then they hit. Yeah,
Oh, all right. The words don't even sound cool, but
I think if you call them baby formula, or what do you call them? So what I'm saying is, no, well, I'm gonna send it to you. I'm gonna send it to you. I'm gonna send it to you. And give you something. All right. You ready to get started?
yeah.
Is that the number?
Yeah, you play.
Dang.
You ready to be after you shot?
That's what I thought.
Not yet, though.
No, it's not.
Huh?
You got like 2 minutes.
Oh, this will be in this chapter. Yeah.
For the book.
No, we're still in the beginning.
Dang.
You're getting the tell the salat. You're getting the salat. There you go.
I better pull up a chair. I gotta pull up a chair.
You got one
Pull
of
up a
these?
chair, man.
You got one of these?
Yeah, the other one probably come tomorrow, so.
Bismillah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Last week we stopped with Tayammum. We finished the chapter of Tayammum, the dry wudu. If the water is not available at all, or the water is present but a person is not able to get to the water, or the water is present, a person is able to get to the water, but they're not able to use it based on that current situation. So today, we move to another chapter, Fasl, removing the najasa, izalat najasa, removing the impurity. And instead of using impurity, let's just use, for example, let's use urine. All of this is going to come back up in the chapter of Salat, because from the conditions of the Salat is the wudu, and also from the conditions before a person can pray, is that they have to make sure that their clothes are clean from najis, impure things, meaning urine or feces or something like that, or blood, right? That a person can't pray with those things on their body or their clothing, so it has to be cleaned off before a person prays. So, Kitab al-Tahara in general is a condition before the next chapter, which is Kitab al-Salah. So this is going to come up again in the chapter of the Salah when they talk about the conditions for the Salah. From it is removing anything that is considered, sometimes it's translated as filth. But the filth here is not the filth that we know, not meaning something that is dirty. Right? We say something is dirty, we say it's filthy. A person can have on dirty jeans or a dirty shirt. That doesn't mean that they can't pray in that shirt. So the najis is a specific type of filth. It's a specific type of filth. And that is something that itself prevents a person from being able to pray. For example, urine. If a person has urine on their clothes or urine on their body, they can't pray with urine on them. Or feces, they can't pray. If they have feces on their clothes or on their body, blood, and other things that are going to be mentioned. So in order to be able to pray, a person has to remove that filth first, that najis. Tayyib is different ways to remove it based on location. Where is the najis? Is it on the ground? Is it on your clothing? Is it on your skin? Is it on a container inside of a dish, a bowl, or a plate in the house? Depending on where that filth is going to depend on how you clean it. That's number one. Number two, depending on the filth itself, where does it come from? Where does it come from? Did it come from an adult? Did it come from a baby? Did it come from an animal? That's going to also determine how it has to be cleaned. And that right there is the chapter in summary. Everything depends. All filth, all urine, blood is not cleaned the same way. It's not all cleaned the same way. It all is cleaned with water, but as we go through the chapter, we'll see the differences in how each situation differs, inshallah. طيب. قال المصنف رحمه الله فصل تدخل أرض ونحوها بإزالة عين النجاسة وأثرها بالماء. This first situation is if the najis, and we'll say, instead of keep saying najis, we'll just use urine. If the urine or something like the urine is on the ground, meaning, we used an example before, you're out and about and it's time to pray, so you go in the parking lot to pray, for example. You go in the parking lot to pray, and there are a lot of times certain parts of the parking lots are used for people using the bathroom, right? It might be in the far corner, so we figure I'm gonna go over in the far corner out of the way and pray. You go over to the far corner and you see urine on the ground, right? Or somebody tells you that's urine on the ground. In this case, how do you clean that if there's nowhere else to pray? Like you might just say, I'm gonna go somewhere else to pray. Well, we're talking about a situation where that place has to be cleaned, right? Or even if it's in your house. A person might have a dog, not in the house, but they keep their dog outside, right? It's a guard dog. Muslims shouldn't have dogs in the house anyway, right? But if the dog, for example, runs in the house, he's feeding the dog, or she's feeding the dog runs in the house, and urinates on the floor in the house, it has to be cleaned. That if it's on the ground is cleaned with water as long as it is removed. You pour the water on it until it is moved, until it's gone, until the ground is clean. This is the first situation. If it's on the ground, you pour water on it until it washes away. Then he says, وَبَوْلُ الْغُلَامِ لَمْ يَأْكُلْ طَعَامًا بِشَهْوَةٍ وَقِيءُهُ بِغَمْرِهِ بِهِ. This is the second situation. This situation has to do with a young, or we'll say an infant, infants come in two types, don't they? Male and female. The infant, the male infant, the boy, the male infant, and the description is that this infant doesn't eat food, but the infant is still on the breast, on breast milk, and he doesn't desire food. The infant hasn't reached the age where they desire food. Not just any infant, the male infant that's still being nursed. The male infant that's still being nursed that doesn't desire food. For example, you change in the baby, you know, you take the pamper off, kaboom. Right? And it gets on your clothes, right? It's urine that has to be cleaned. This type of urine, or this najis, this filth, is cleaned in a specific way. With, as he says, بِغَمْرِهِ بِهِ, that the water is not drenched, as we say on it, but the water is flaked on it, if we could say, or sprinkled on it. And it doesn't have to sprinkle, it doesn't have to be water to the fact that it's running off the clothes. The area is soaked, not to the point where it's dripping, but the area is soaked, and that's enough for that type of infant. So if we said an infant on breast milk that doesn't desire food, and it's a boy, right? They don't desire food, then that's the way we clean it. But what if it's a girl? If it's a girl, do we clean it the same way? If you're changing your daughter and you take off the pamper, your daughter pees on it. You don't clean it the same way. It's a different cleanse for that. But yeah, they make these things specific. The wording is very specific. A young boy, an infant boy on breast milk that doesn't desire food. That's how you clean the urine when he pees on your clothes. But what about the infant girl who's on breast milk that doesn't desire food? She doesn't fit the description to clean the urine like that. That was the second one. He says, وَغَيْرُهُمَا بِسَبْعِ غَسَلَاتٍ. This is the third situation. The third situation is, meaning the urine is not on the ground, and the urine is not from an infant boy on breast milk that doesn't desire food. So for example, right, you end up with a situation where there's urine on your jeans. You get urine on your jeans. You go in a public bathroom, a public restroom, there's a puddle of urine on the ground, you step in it and it splashes and gets on your pants leg. For example, or any other of your clothes that you're wearing. In this case, he says, وَغَيْرُهُمَا بِسَبْعِ غَسَلَاتٍ. If that was the case, you will rinse that and clean that area 7 times. If it's where it's on your pants leg, for example, or if it's on your throat, or if it's on your t-shirt, it's on your jacket. All right, you would clean that area 7 times. And in this one, even the ulama, they differ if that's the case. Some say you only have to clean it 1 time with the removal of the najis. The fourth one is if the urine or the najis is from, as he says, بسبع غسلات أحدها بتراب ونحوي في نجاسة كلب وخنزير فقط مع زوالها. That if the najis, if the filth is from a dog or from a pig, if that's the case, then the cleaning is done by cleaning it 7 times, one of those times being with dirt. One of those times being with dirt. So we have 3 specific situations. In one situation, the urine is on the ground. In another situation, it's urine from an infant boy on breast milk who doesn't desire food. In the third situation, it is filth, urine, or the licking from a dog or a pig. And in the fourth situation, it is if any type of urine or any type of najis is on your clothing or on your body or something like that. طيب. All of them differ as far as the way you clean them. He says, وَلَا يَدُرُّ بَقَاءُ لَوْنٍ أَوْ رِيحٍ أَوْ هُمَا عَجْزًا. So it's possible to clean the urine off. For example, you clean the urine off of your throat or your pants leg. And it's possible that the color of the urine is still on the fabric, right? Or it's possible that the smell is still on there. The smell could still be on the fabric. It could still be on your jeans. It could still smell like urine, right? You washed it off and washed it and washed it and washed it and washed it, and it still has the color of the urine, or it still has the color of the blood, or it still has the smell of the urine, right? After you washed it, however many times you were supposed to wash it. This is called artisan. In this case, a person is not able to remove it off. It's not going to come off, like blood. Sometimes blood, you can wash it off, and then the stain will be there, right? It still has a stain. It may have a stain on that piece of material, on the jeans, or on the pants, on the t-shirt. The stain is there, right? So you can see it. You can see where the blood was, or sometimes it may still have a smell. If those things are not able to be removed, if you can't get them off, then this does not harm a person. If it's what? The color or the smell. What about, what's number 3? It can, just in general. In general, if it gets on your clothes, you wash it as many times you're supposed to wash it, depending on the situation, and the stain is still there, the color's still there, or the smell is still there, right? If that's the case, and the person washes it as many times as they can and it's not able to come out, then that is excused. That means they can pray with that stain, with the stain on the shirt, or with the stain on the pants leg, or with the stain on the sock. They can pray like that. طيب. وتطهر خمرة انقلبت بنفسها خلا. Does anybody know where vinegar comes from? Vinegar? Vinegar sometimes comes from liquor. Sits, and then it turns into vinegar. طيب. Liquor, khamr, wine is najis. It's considered najis, meaning if a person spilled wine on their clothing and they didn't clean it off, they can't pray like that. They would have to go through all the steps we just spoke about, wine. Like, what if that wine, if you got a whole bowl of wine or a whole bottle of wine, or a whole bowl of wine, say a bottle, whatever it's in, and the wine sat so long that it turned into vinegar. It's no longer wine. Eat a chef, right? Does that happen? طيب. Eat a chef. MashaAllah. طيب. If the wine turns into vinegar on its own, then it becomes pure. Also, whatever's connected to the wine, meaning the jug that it's in, the bottle, the container that's holding it, is also pure at that point. If it's done how? Naturally. It naturally turns into vinegar. Meaning the person doesn't add anything, that it sits so long that it turns into vinegar. When that happens, that vinegar is no longer najis, it's no longer filth. And also the container that it was in, whatever bottle or container that it was in that was holding the wine that turned into vinegar, it is no longer considered najis. But this is not the case, as he says, لا دهن ومتشرب نجاسة. That doesn't apply for things that the najasa, the filth, is soaked into it. It became part of it. For example, it soaks into, or it mixes with some oil that you can't remove it from it. It mixes with another liquid and it can't be removed from that liquid. The amount of filth or urine, let's use urine or blood, it's been mixed in and you can't remove it. You can't take it out. That means that thing will remain impure. It would have to be cleaned if it fell on your clothes or if it fell on the floor or anywhere else. طيب. طيب. Now, the fact that this urine or this blood or whatever it is has to be cleaned. There's some situations where the urine may be present, but a person is excused. It's an excusable amount. The amount of najis could be excusable. طيب. He's going to specify when it's excusable and when it's not excused. طيب. He says, وَعُفِيَ فِي غَيْرِ مَاءٍ. It's excused in the first situation, فِي غَيْرِ مَاءٍ. In things that are not liquid. طيب. Things that are not liquids. If it's not in the liquid, right? He's going to clarify. This is the first thing. It can't be in a liquid. The urine can't fall into a liquid. The blood can't fall into a liquid. طيب. And it also can't fall into mat'um. It can't fall into something that's edible. It can't fall into food that you're going to eat, something that's edible. Right? What's excusable? Yasir, a small amount of blood. A small amount of blood. As long as it doesn't fall into something that's edible, and as long as it's not a liquid, it's not in a liquid form, right? It doesn't fall into a liquid. Now he specifies more. That dam najis, and we have two types of animals. Generally, we got two types of animals. Anybody know? Two types of animals. Two types of animals. Animals are placed in two categories from one angle, from one aspect. Either the animal is, either the animal is Islamically allowed to be eaten, or it's not Islamically allowed to be eaten. We have animals that it's permissible to eat, and we have animals that it's not permissible to eat. But yeah, it's a difference. It makes a difference. That right there is going to determine what's coming next. Some animals we can eat, and some animals we can't eat. But yeah, some animals are considered pure, they're clean animals, and some animals are considered filthy animals, najis. That's another category. But yeah, some animals bleed, right? And some animals don't bleed. Not that they don't have blood, but the blood doesn't leak. Some animals, if you slaughtered it, the blood leaks for a long time. Some animals, if you kill them, no blood runs. So yeah, all of this is going to count on, because blood in itself, blood is considered najis. It's filth. It has to be cleaned off a person before they can pray. So now, and this is not something far-fetched, people go to slaughter animals. So they're eating stuff like that, you gotta slaughter. Blood comes out. We still got to pray that day. So a lot of times we're there for a long time. We got to pray maybe 2-3 salats up at the farm, right? So now what happens if blood gets on your boot, or blood gets on your pants, or blood gets on your shirt, you don't have a change of clothes, right? You have to know how to clean it off in order to pray. So the small amount of blood, وَنَحْوِهِ مِنْ حَيَوَانٍ طَاهِرٍ لَا دَمْ سَبِيلٍ إِلَّا مِنْ حَيْضٍ. The animal that is considered to be pure. And that animal, for the blood, that small amount of blood that comes from the pure animal doesn't come from ahad as-sabilain. It doesn't come from, it's not urination, and it's not from the backside. It doesn't come from one of the two exits, either through the penis for the male, whatever is called for that male animal, or the rectum. Whatever the case is, that as long as the blood doesn't come from those two areas, and the animal is tahir, the animal is a pure animal. Okay? We know example of a pure animal? What's a pure animal? Huh? A who? A cat. J, cat. Cat is pure. You can't eat cats. That's usually something we can eat. Huh? A chicken, a chicken. She's a lamb or a cow. She's a lamb or a cow or a goat. So blood, it's a little bit of blood from a goat, right? But that blood, as long as that blood didn't come from, right, the penis or the vagina or of that animal, whatever they call it in that animal, right? Just to make it clear, or the rectum of that animal, then as long as it's a small amount. He says, إِلَّا مِنْ حَيْضٍ, except. The acceptance is if it is the mince blood, the blood of the menses. That's the exception. Now, we got to understand now, it's a couple categories going to come up, right? It's not to mix them up. The next couple things are considered pure in all situations. It says, مَا لَا نَفْسَ لَهُ سَائِلًا. Those things that they don't have running blood when you kill them. The blood doesn't flow out when you kill it. Like what? Huh? A goat, when you slaughter a goat, it's going to be gushing blood out of the goat. Something that you kill, and when you kill it, the blood doesn't flow. Like as if you were to slaughter a goat or a cow or a camel, it's going to be blood flowing. You ain't got to slaughter a fish. Right? Well, we don't call them animals. We call them, some of them, we call them insects. Right? A fly, mosquitoes, right? We categorize them as insects. You kill a mosquito, mosquitoes have blood, don't they? Sometimes you see, right? But the blood doesn't run like as if you were to slaughter a goat or a cow or something like that. So those things that when you kill them and the blood doesn't run and flow, all of them are considered to be pure. They're not najis. طيب. As he says, وَقُمْلٌ, lice. Somebody gets lice, right? Lice is usually in the hair. It's not najis. If it was najis, then they wouldn't be able to pray until they removed all the lice, right? Lice. Or fleas. Right? Fleas. Or وَبَعُوض, mosquitoes, وَنَحْوَهَا طَاهِرًا مُطْلَقًا. All those things are considered to be pure. Not to say clean, because we don't consider people that have lice, we don't consider that a clean trait, right? But because it's not a clean trait doesn't mean that they can't pray like that. It's a difference. There's a difference between something being what we know to be filthy, not kept up, dirty, raggedy, and it's a difference between something being impure. Impure blocks you from being able to pray. It blocks you from being able to do certain things. So we're not talking about what we know to be filthy and raggedy, and we're talking about what's impure that stops us from being, that prevents us from being able to pray. That's the difference. It doesn't mean that lice is okay, and it doesn't mean that. But a person that has lice, are they able to pray? They're able to pray, even if they do have lice, or even if the cat has fleas. Can't say, some people might think they can't pray in the house, right? The cat has fleas, so they think they can't pray in the house. Fleas are not najis. Fleas, it's not a clean thing, right? But it's not to the point where it blocks a person from being able to pray. It doesn't do that. Fleas. Mosquitoes, the same. Mosquitoes may come from, sometimes the water sits too long, right? Mosquitoes start. Even if that's the case, the water might stink, right? You might not use the water for wudu or something like that. But the fact that mosquitoes are there, the fact that you kill a mosquito on your arm and you see the blood, right? It doesn't mean that it's najis. Doesn't mean that it's najis. You probably still clean it off anyway. But it doesn't mean that it's najis and stops a person from praying. طيب. It says after that, وَمَارِئٌ مُسْكِرٌ. The intoxicants. Liquid intoxicants. طيب. Now these things he's talking about now are najis, filth, impure. طيب. Liquid intoxicants. وَمَا لَا يُؤْكَلْ مِنْ طَيْرٍ. The birds that are not permissible to eat. Vultures, right? And birds with the claws that are not permissible to eat. They're considered to be najis, right? وَبَهَائِمْ مِمَّا فَوْقَ الْحِرَّةِ خِلْقَةً. Animals that are larger than a cat. Animals larger than a cat. Now, it's two categories for animals larger than a cat. Right? What are they? There you are. Animals that are larger than a cat. Some of them we can eat, some of them we can't eat. The ones that we can't eat are najis. The ones that we can eat, like goat, right? They're not najis. Lamb is not najis. Cow are not najis. Clear? So, specifically, the liquid intoxicants, khamr, wine, right? وَمَا لَا يُؤْكَلْ مِنْ طَيْرٍ. Those birds that are not permissible to eat. Birds with claws. Vultures and crows and those things, those birds have claws. Animals that are larger than the size of a cat that we can't eat. Right? You with me? From those animals that we cannot eat. Right? Let's just use the pig or a dog. From the pig or a dog may be milk. The female. Right? The milk is also najis, is also filth, impure. The sperm is also impure. See, if you're not raising these animals, it might not be realistic, but people who are around, you see how Allah created them, from top to bottom. Right? Everybody see the breakdown? Those animals that we can't eat, what comes from those animals that are not permissible to eat is also filth. Pig is najis, is filthy. The leaven, the milk that comes from it is filthy. The urine that comes from it is filthy. The skin, it is najis in itself. من غير آدم. ونحوها من غير مأكول لحم نجسا. طيب. And not just the pig, the dog, anything above the size of a cat, based on the hadith of where the Prophet ﷺ clarified that the cats are not najis. Cats are not impure. As he said, the cats are the things that are constantly moving around you. But they're constantly walking around with the cat. The Prophet ﷺ specified that cats are not najis. So the ulama say that anything the size of a cat or under is also not considered to be impure. Not that it's clean the way we say it's clean. You can't mix up what we consider to be clean and dirty or filthy and was pure and was not pure. All right, they're different, they're not the same. So, if that's the case, that the animals larger than the cat that we don't eat, then these things are impure. So what about the animals larger than the cat that we do eat? Then
The stuff that's from them is allowed.
the stuff that's from them is allowed. So therefore, that's why when you go to cow milk or camel milk or camel urine. Camel urine is used for medicine. Right? Growing hair growth. It's used for medicine. Right? Point being is that the camel is allowed to eat. Therefore, is not considered najis. And the urine from the camel is not considered najis. Right? And the leaven, the milk from the camel is not considered najis. Just like a cow. Cow is permissible to eat. Therefore, the milk is permissible to drink. Right? Now, I don't know if anybody using cow urine, but if the cow urine was a situation, then the qaida is the qaida. The principle is the principle. You have animals larger than the size of a cat, then you have animals smaller than the size of a cat. The animals larger than the size of a cat, they break into two categories. Either we can eat them or we can't eat them. If we can't eat them, they're najis, and what comes from them is najis. If we can eat them, they're not considered najis, they're not considered filthy, and what comes from them are not considered filthy. If they're smaller than a cat, then they're considered to be pure. What else is smaller than a cat? That we might not know. It doesn't mean one word is called hayawan, but
Something smaller than a cat?
yeah, smaller than a cat.
Hamster.
A hamster, good. Are hamsters clean? Depends on who you ask. Tell you. What else?
Squirrels and rodents.
Gee, we're rodents. Squirrels, rodents. They're smaller than a cat, right? Rodents include mice. Difference between what we say dirty, filthy, nasty, and impure. It's a difference. Tell you. I'm not trying to say anybody,
I do got a question.
So,
So mice, it's like, you eat mice? I mean, that's not our customs, but
no, not good. I'm glad you asked that. Because it's the size of a cat. Can we eat cat?
no, not.
Because it's the size of a cat and smaller doesn't mean it's edible. Clear? We're talking about, is it pure or not pure? That's one thing. Can we eat it or not eat it? That's another issue. And a lot of that comes in the chapter of food. It's a whole chapter dealing with the animals, what we can eat and what we can't eat. Like, right now we're talking about what's pure and what's not pure. Pure meaning enough that it doesn't stop me, it doesn't prevent me from praying or doing other things that I would need to prepare for. Just say the salah. Something got on me to block me from the salah. طيب. He says, وَمِنْهُ طَاهِرًا, meaning from the animals that we can eat. There's some that are pure. We already know that. We don't eat anything that is filthy or najis. So cows and beef, chicken, everything we eat Islamically is ruled as being pure. It's not considered anything filthy. Right? And filth is not determined by, what's pure and impure is not determined by the custom of a people. Right? Yeah, we don't eat camel, but that don't mean camel is najis. Right? Well, I'm not saying we, I mean, a lot of people don't eat camel. Tell you, what about, it's just, pigeons? Pigeons, we don't eat pigeons. But that doesn't mean that pigeons are najis because we don't eat them. So the Sharia, Islam determines what animals are permissible to eat and what animals are not permissible to eat. What birds can we eat, what birds we can't eat. Based on the Quran and the Sunnah, not based on where we live and what our people do or what we're used to. Our custom does not rule in that area, in that case. Tayyib. So you have the clean animals that we can eat. Also those things where the blood doesn't leak when it's killed. There's no running blood. Those things are also considered to be pure. طيب. He says, وَيُعْفَى عَنْ يَسِيرٍ طِينٍ شَارِعُ عُرْفًا إِنْ عُلِمَتْ نَجَاسَتُهُ إِلَّا وَإِلَّا فَطَاهِرٍ. So the situation where it rains, right? It rains and then there's mud in the street. And the streets are, we say they're messy, right? It's a mess out there. In this case, that mud or whatever, you know how you walk, and if some of the water comes up off the back of your shoe, or it's a person riding a bike, right? The water from the back tire flips up on the back of their clothes. So now the question is, can they pray like that? They roll through the streets, they roll through alleyways and driveways, and the water or the mud that was on the ground from the rain is all over the bottom of their pants leg, on the back of their jacket, whatever the case may be. And all the while they're on the way to the masjid to pray. Tayyib? So the question is a person allowed to pray in that condition?
So that question
Rain. I would like to ask rain and dirt on it.
It's mud, it's dirt, it was raining, a person jumps on their bike or they walk to the masjid, and now maybe they cut through the driveway, they cut through the back, walk past a dumpster, right? And the water from the shoe comes up and gets on the back of their pants. Or they ride the bike and from the back tire, the water's all over the back of their jacket. They come to the masjid. Can they pray in a situation like that?
I think so.
I
It's a
think
mixture
so,
of
too.
pure things.
It's a mixture of
Pure things.
pure things.
Dirt, rain from along the dirt, you know, we can.
Tayyib.
I'll say yes.
The origin, the asl is that the water is pure. We need confirmation that it is impure, right? So now we get confirmation that there's a little bit of, you walk past a dumpster, huh? You get some confirmation that it was a little bit of urine in that area, right? And you rode your bike by there, or you walked by there, right? So it's confirmation, it's confirmed now that it was there was some urine in that area. So yeah.
Does it depend on how much water, urine it was, to the fact that it was water that was clean?
Yes, depends. That's why it specifies yasir. If it's a little bit, right? You're fine, yasir. If it's a little bit of, let's just use urine, right? In that situation of what? Outside, rain, mud, and everything mixed together. So you're a bit, if it's a little bit, ordifen, according to the order for the people, according to the custom of the people, what the people consider to be a small amount, right? Which could vary from city to city, from state to state, country to country. Whatever the people consider to be a small amount, right, then that is excused in that case. Clear? From the clean Sharia. Clean Sharia. the mud in the streets from the rain, when the rain comes and storms and stuff like that, if it's confirmed it's a small amount of urine and a person was coming to pray and it feels a small amount, then that is excusable. The origin being that rainwater and things like that are not najis. The fact that it rains and it gets on your pants leg and you don't know where that rainwater came from, it doesn't mean that you have to change your clothes. That's not the asl. That's not the origin of water. The origin of water is that water is pure. Water is pure. So we need confirmation. We need to be sure that the water is impure before we say a person can't pray like that. Right? The fact that we got caught in the rain, we might not want to pray like that because it's not comfortable. Right? You want to pray in wet clothes, it's not comfortable. But Islamically, is a person allowed to pray in the clothes that were wet by rain? There's no problem with that. As the asl is that the water is pure. طيب. We'll stop there because the next chapter goes to the chapter of the menses. So we'll stop there unless there's no questions, if there are any questions. We'll do the chapter of the menses, inshallah ta'ala, next week. I want to start it and then have to stop in the middle of it. The hayd.
Question, what is the case with a dog? What makes the dog haram?
The dog. It's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. What makes the dog haram? A dog is not haram, number one. I don't know what they mean by haram. A dog is not
It's
haram.
not permissible to have in the house, right?
But the dog has specific cases for the Muslim. There's specific cases, and there's a specific way we benefit from dogs. And it's important that the Muslim learns how the Muslim interacts with the dog. The dog itself is not haram, but a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ taught us how to deal with the dog. And one of them is the fact that the dog is najis, it's impure, and the saliva from the dog is impure. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said if he licks in one of your bowls or your dishes, you got to wash it 7 times. One time has to be with dirt. So the dog is impure. Not that a dog can't be used for gardening. There are other hadith that prohibit that we're not supposed to keep dogs inside of our houses. Inside of the house is one thing. Outside of the house with a dog house, garden, the property is another thing. It's not the same. The prohibition is on having the dog inside of the house. Prohibition is not on having the dog outside of the house. The prohibition is on, or the fact that, not the prohibition, the hukum is on the saliva of the dog being najis. The spit from the dog is impure. So what happens when the dog licks you with the spit? He licks you, you gotta wash it now.
7 times.
Meaning, you can't just pray like that. It's because you raised the dog from a baby, and you know some people are with dogs, they let the dog lick them in the face and stuff like that, right? It's najis, it has to be cleaned. Not that the dog is haram, but how do we interact with the dog is an Islamic issue that has to be known. And the person gonna get a dog, a Muslim gonna get a dog, then you should know the do's and the don'ts for a Muslim that has a dog. Inshallah. I hope that's clear. Dogs are not haram itself, but some things are, and some things aren't. The way we deal with them. Inshallah. That's it. That's it. Right, we'll stop there until next week. Inshallah, we'll do next week the chapter of the menses. And after that, inshallah, we'll start the chapter of the salah, kitab al-salah. Inshallah, wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.